Greetings, everybody, and welcome back for another BMF Discussions podcast. I'm your host, Richard Billy Jr., and tonight I'm joined by Miss Dana Abercrombie. How's it going, Dana?
That is damn dry ass wall to you, sir. But I am doing good.
Yeah, that's good.
It was
That's
that or
good.
the skillet. But I'm doing great. Excited to talk about this episode because it was awesome.
Yeah, I agree. Very good episode of BMF. Very entertaining. I do have a few critiques that I will get into later, but overall, I thought it was a pretty good episode. So tonight we're going to be talking about BMF Season 2, Episode 9, titled High Treason. Okay, so I just want to start it off by saying thank you to everybody that has been supporting the show, whether you're leaving comments, liking the videos, or subscribing. We appreciate your continued support, and I would definitely encourage you to continue to do so. As I know we have the finale coming next week, and we definitely want to end these discussions off strong. So once again, if you enjoy the conversation, leave your comments, consider subscribing, and definitely like the videos. And we look forward to keeping talking about these shows from here on out. So with that said, for tonight's discussion, I have four particular topics that I want to get into with this particular episode. And after that, I will, allow Dana to share any additional things that she thinks we should discuss as far as the topics are concerned. But let me go ahead and start off by saying this was a very spicy episode of BMF. There's a lot of things that happen, so we're not going to delay any further. My first topic of discussion tonight, we need to talk about Lamar and Monique's deadly night together. Pun fully intended. Okay. So obviously we saw in this episode that Lamar brings roses. He brings flowers to Monique.
Tulips.
Well, tulips. There you go. Yeah. He brings some tulips to Monique. And pretty much he has, again, he's trying to show her that he can change, he can be positive. He does tell her that he opened up a college fund for Zoe and gave her a $30K check, which, hey, that's I love that. I love to know that information. I would love to get some of that money also, but it is what it is. He also gives her a promise ring with a promise that, hey, he knows that it's going to take time. They're starting over again. So pretty much he just wants to give her a something to look forward to in the future, to try to show, again, emphasize that he is a changed man. Then after that, they decide to get high again. Now, as this is happening, she basically tries to give him crack. And
crack.
Yes, crack. And and of course, when he sees that, he tells her, well, hold on a second. Ladies first. So you go ahead and you start this off, and then I'll continue. So of course, they take that whole thing, and then you find out with this conversation. Yes, he says, oh, so Meech put you up to this. You're trying to kill me. They go back and forth, and they end up having a very physical altercation. Now, the urn that Blackie was in, that ends up getting smashed over Lamar's head. So rest in peace to Blackie once again, I guess, right? And then we get to a point where he chokes Monique to death. And, of course, as we do find out later, sometime after that, his friend does pay him a visit. The actor that you interviewed that plays his friend.
Pay him a visit is a different kind of, that's an alternative fact, as they say.
Well, yeah. He comes over. He comes over there because
he was summoned.
Lamar calls him. Lamar calls him and says, "Oh, I need help." He comes over there. So he comes over there, and his job is to help Lamar move the body. Then, while this is happening, Zoe calls home, and Lamar answers the phone, which I don't think was a wise decision. He answers the phone. She asks, "Is my mom there?" He says, "No, she's in the shower," and says that we'll talk later. And he does say, "Oh, I love you." She hangs up on him. Now, here's what I have to say. First and foremost, okay. I just want to say, first and foremost, I thought this, I'm very, I liked how the storyline played out because, again, they took their time to build to this moment. It wasn't something that was rushed for the sake of something that happens all in one episode. No, you saw with the passing episodes how Lamar was trying to get close to Monique, and the whole question that we asked on this show was, would her plan work? Well, we saw in the end it did not work. But the question that I have after this is, where does Lamar go from here? Your thoughts on this. Now, before you answer this question, I do want to let people know, and I'm sure you will reiterate this, you actually are going to be interviewing the actor that plays Lamar soon. So I'm very curious to hear what he says in that interview. But for now, I want to ask you, what did you think about how they handled this storyline, and where do you think Lamar goes from here?
So, first of all, Lamar was on his Scarface duties tonight because that was, you remember the whole thing of Scarface was that level of paranoia, more drugs. I mean, all that was really missing. There was point where he kept doing drugs after drugs after drugs. It opened with him and Alvin, and him, Alvin was sitting there watching the TV thing, and you could tell he was still high. Remember in the previous episodes, the guy has been high more times than he kind of started. Then he stopped killing to basically get more high. And that offers a whole new level of paranoia. And I think that was really smart for him to figure out about that crack situation. But here's the thing I was trying to figure out what tipped him off. Was it the fact that she introduced because from my understanding, she never did crack. They never did crack together. So that introduction, was that a way to like tip him off, because they would always do something else. So like, oh, why are you randomly introducing this new drug to me?
Yes.
So yeah.
I just was going to say,
yeah.
She introduced it to him because she was trying to kill him.
Right. I know, but that's what his mindset is. Oh, that I think is what takes him off to something being wrong. The fact that she wanted to introduce this is a new thing called crack. But then was it also the fact that she hesitated, she smoked it, but then she started coughing. That's the thing I was wondering, was whether or not the drug was fully laced, in terms of, was she actually trying to kill him with the drug? Because she kept coughing, but it wasn't like I'm dying coughing, like and then you just die. This was, she genuinely was coughing, and so I was wondering, was that because you was introducing a new drug, crack, into your system, or was it actually laced? So, or was the coughing that set him off, or was it the introduction of crack? So that was kind of where I did not fully understand what was going on. But he was right either way. And intuition, he did not want, he knew that something was up with Monique. He knew that, they are trying to kill him. Multiple times we've seen she was given the opportunity to kill him, but she didn't. Then also the fact that he came over, wasn't like, I'm going to go over there and introduce him to some crack and we're going to kill him again. He came over, so it was an unexpected situation. And then she's already a drug addict to begin with. So that was kind of like the gray area where I didn't know if she was intentionally going to kill him this time, or that was, she was finally initiating the plan. The daughter situation was very telling. Him answering, I love you. She's like, hangs up. Where does it go from here? I feel that he is going to be in this blind rage. Also, on top of that, he's already angry from the fact that he's being blackballed. He can't sell any of the product. He can't make any money that way. So, and he's like completely high on the drugs. So I see this being the finale part of Scarface, where he's going to go out trying to kill Terry and Meech in a blaze of glory. And unfortunately, I do believe that this may be Lamar's time to actually go be with Blackie. Go in peace now.
Well, I agree 100% with everything you said about that. I mean, it felt to me like, again, the end of the episode, and we'll get into Meech and Terry later, but it's pretty much setting these guys on a collision course where somebody has to go out in the next episode. Now, obviously, as far as Lamar is concerned, he does blame Meech for all of this. So, from a storytelling standpoint, the next episode, and Meech did mention that they have a lot to do in that finale because there's a lot of people that they need to come after. Obviously, Bryant is at the top of the list, but Lamar is also on that list. So I as a viewer, I'm expecting them to have a confrontation in the next episode, and that needs to be the final confrontation because I don't think that, we know that in real life, the guy that Lamar is based on is still alive. I don't know if they're going to stick to that or they're going to just take this character out. I don't know, but in any event, the character that has to meet his end, I do believe next week, I would say, but I want to see how they handle it.
Storyline wise, I love the actor I love Lamar, but he had where else do you go from here in season 3? What else do you do? It's not like he's gonna redeem himself, join the church, and become a Mormon door, I don't know, Jehovah's Witness. That's not gonna happen. He's going to continue to be who he always is. And you lost everything now. What is it? I'm gonna go fight for my custody of Zoe? No. I hate to say it, but he has to go. There's nothing else for this character to do.
Now,
but you can't put him in jail because he's just sitting there.
I agree. But the reason, but one thing I will say, and again, we can go back to your interview with Donnell Rollins, who does play Alvin. He did mention season 3. They're already thinking about season 3. That kind of tells me that Lamar could still be around. But again, they need to really explain that whole situation because I feel like a lot of people, you don't want this to be the same scenario every season. They got to worry about Lamar. So they have to figure out how to handle that storyline. So I don't know what they're going to do, but I'm curious to see what they do for sure next week.
I see Alvin going too. It's just that, he's in this fit and blind rage. And this again seems like the blueprint to Scarface. And, Scarface's loyal allies, they went too. And that whole fit, remember when he was sitting up there in the mansion and he was paranoid as all can be? Say hello to my little friend. We're literally at that part now. So rest in peace, Alvin. He can finally watch TV wherever he goes, heaven. Hope it's not the other place. So, he'll watch his TV where nobody can interrupt him. And Lamar can be with Blackie. So it's a wonderful ending for both of them.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we'll see what happens. I'm looking forward to it. So any other thoughts on this topic before we move on to the next topic?
No, just poor Alvin, man. He can't catch a break this episode. He could not catch a single break.
Yeah. By the way, I do want to make one comment. And this is a very big deal because I don't think anybody is going to be talking about this quite yet. But Monique getting killed is also bad for Denise because if you recall, she was represented as the lawyer to help her. The one that was friends with Terry that was a part of that driving business that decided to do the time, and they said, "Oh, they'll take care of her." So that could be a problem later, but we'll have to wait and see because obviously that's a concern that they definitely should have moving forward. But we'll see how they handle that as well.
I love what they're doing with Monique and her character. The sister part was just touching.
Oh, you think so?
Yes. I mean, we're already in the thrust of the 80s. What was popping off in the 80s? Crack and AIDS.
Well, wait a second. I wasn't. That's you're talking about Goldie. I'm talking about Monique. I'm talking about Monique who died in this episode. Yeah. We'll get to Goldie. Later. Yeah, we'll get to Goldie later.
I was so off.
No.
Said Monique because you know why they always call her Mo. So when you said Monique, I went to the actress.
Don't worry. I'm sure Inga71 will correct you also. But that's who I meant with Denise. But no, we're good. We'll come back to that. We'll come back to her soon. I'm gonna move
Oh,
on
what
to.
Denise? They never touched upon Denise again. Did she die in prison? Is she all right? Does she need a hug, some food?
Oh no, she's still in there, but we'll find out
They
later. We'll
never
find out later.
mentioned her. She had
Yeah,
one scene. I'm gonna go drive, and then she's in jail, and then we never saw her again.
that's right. That's right. We'll see. We'll
Oh,
see what
Denise.
happens. All right. I'm gonna go to the next topic here. And this is again another storyline that was handled very well throughout the season. We need to talk about Lucille and Mabel's you know, confrontation in this episode. Now, obviously, it started out with Pastor Swift stops by to pick up Lucille and take her to dinner. I did find that very
Right.
funny because we already know that Pastor Swift is a very grimy in how he does certain things.
Right.
It, you do see when they get to that restaurant, um, he does put his hand on her thigh, saying, "Oh yeah, I'll be here for you."
Mm-hmm.
If she says no, she tells him, "No, no, I'm only getting some guidance. I don't want, I don't need you to do anything." And of course, at that point, which I also laughed, you see them coming up, bringing the bill, and he says, "Oh no, my brother, you can split this down the middle." So that was funny because obviously, he probably would have paid for it if he thought he was going to get something out of that. But yeah, that was funny. So later in the episode, we do see that Mabel finally returns the skillet to Lucille. And then as she, Lucille is obviously distraught over what happened with Charles. She tries to confide in her. And then you see as Mabel is pulling stuff out of her purse, she has a matchbox that has that same Easy Rest Hotel label on it, which is the same receipt that Charles had. So then she tells her off. She says, "You're dead to me," and says, "I better not ever see you again." And of course, she leaves. And then she proceeds to destroy Charles' guitar. So obviously, I think season 3, we're headed for a divorce, if I had to make a guess. I did find it interesting how, again, shout out to Russell Hornsby, but they make this character look very weak a lot of times. The whole thing about you had Nicole cooking dinner for him, I'm like, man, can this guy do anything for himself? No, he can't. So very interesting. But my question is, now, based upon your interview with Christine Horn, once again, shout out to her. Do you feel that Lucille and Mabel are going to have another confrontation, or is it over and now it's just going to be about the divorce between Lucille and Charles?
I don't even. Who's to say they're gonna get a divorce? Is even more of the bigger thing. This whole part just broke my poor little heart. Not so much for the marriage, but for Nicole. Like, good lord, she is trying to be like a parent, and she shouldn't be a parent. They should be doting on her and making sure she's okay and living her dreams. And that made me sad. But as for your question, I think that, see, the dramatic part of me wants another confrontation. The dramatic part wants the fatal attraction, boiled bunny in the pot. What about me, Dan? Situation. Or it would be Obsession for those who've never seen Fatal Attraction. Go to Obsession with Beyonce and Idris Elba. But I feel that this is going to be, that was their last dance. I think she's gone with this. I just feel that where else is there to go? Even if you're to say, this is my man, he has already made his stance of, I love you. I don't want to be with her, baby, baby, please. So I see him trying to repair shattered glass. And even though she said, you are dead to me, Charles, I view this as not necessarily a divorce, but her going out and living her life that she never got to live because she married Charles. Things were much different back in that time. We can't have, two working, two parents, and they're both able to live out their dreams and come together in the home. Times were just different back then. Women and men had certain roles that they played. So I think that this is going to be more of a self-discovery of who is she. Also, on top of that, She only has one friend, which was Mabel. Um, so maybe we'll start seeing her be a little bit more social. I don't know if it's hey girlfriend. It may just be like just who's to say she could go back to school, meet a bunch of friends that way, form a community that is outside of Charles. At this point, it might even be outside of the church. Because remember what she said to Pastor Swift, I feel like God has forsaken me. And the one thing that we know is that religion is very important to Lucille. Religion literally saved her life when it came to Lamar knocking on that door. So by her questioning where her relationship is with God, I don't, she's not going to go out to the strip clubs, but I do see this being more of what if I just start taking care of myself? And also, that is a reflection of Nicole. What was Nicole saying to her mother? You take care of us all the time. Let me take care of you. Again, I can't see them getting a divorce. It's really easy to just say, oh, we're divorced now, as opposed to trying, I don't even want to say trying to work through our differences, but let's just stay together for Nicole's sake. We're in the same household, but we're going to do our own separate thing. So that's just how I feel.
Well, yeah, I agree. I think it is going to be a divorce, but I think this is going to get dragged out because at this point, it just feels that way. I will say I wanted to see more drama because based on the interview that Christine Horn had with you, she implied that Mabel wasn't going anywhere. She's going to still be a threat. So I thought when this confrontation happened, she actually was going to say, oh, stand her ground and say, oh, yeah, well, what are you going to do? So I was a little disappointed we didn't get to see that, but we'll see what happens because it's not over. The story isn't complete yet, but I do feel like Charles and Lucille are headed for a divorce.
And can I just say something that we got to see a piece of Lucille that we'd never seen before, which made me so incredibly excited because we saw this. This was she mushed her. That was a full mush. She mushed her. Her fingers was almost in her nose. She was mushing. So I love to see that, and she was cursing. Oh my goodness. So that was a really interesting part. And in the fact that, it was, to me, there should have been more clues. And yes, I interviewed the actress who plays Lucille, and I asked her, when did she first get an inkling that the cheating was beginning, that he was starting to stray away? And she said that it was dirty magazines. So when she brought up the dirty magazines, it was a shift in something is not right with their marriage. And that's when she knew, but she couldn't put her finger on it. But my indication would be this. When she smushed her in her mouth, right? And she said, basically, what did she basically saying? This whole time, I thought he was building a shed for you, but instead he was, patching up your dry walls. I would have thought something was so weird and off by the fact that he kept running to Mabel to be a handyman when their house looks like this. I mean, the walls are literally collapsing, but you're over at Mabel's patching up her house. So that would have been the biggest indication to me that something was wrong. There are literal big holes in their walls. What is going on? So yeah, no, that was just one of the things that completely, it was a really great scene because this was something that we never got to see from Lucille. She really laid it into her. And I think what was really interesting about that scene, how it was played, was it would have been really easy for her to bash her in the skull with that skillet because that was a cast iron. Those are heavy. You can literally murder someone with that. One whack and you're done. But the fact that she instead did the whole mush mouth, she mushed her in the face and, she gave her that threatening tone. I think to me that was more effective than bashing someone in the head with the skull. And also, it's really interesting how the complete disrespect that home has been received. Because you had, remember the cheating with her running over, can I buy the skillet? And her wanting to talk to Charles and, him all, I can't get away from you, woman, was in the house with Lucille literally upstairs. So it was really interesting that she got to confront Mabel with Charles literally upstairs, not knowing what's going on. So I liked how they switched that. But just overall, my heart was just really sad for Nicole because she knows everything that's going on. And she even had to say, Daddy, please leave. You've done enough. So that was just heartbreaking for me.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and she did say she will never get married, never have kids. So obviously the circumstances of what is happening in the house right now will impact her later. At least she has that mindset
I don't blame her.
Yeah.
It's grimy. And then it's not even just that. If you looked at, because you see, she observes everything. She even talked about, every time that I ask somebody what's going on, you're just like Meech, you're just like Terry. No one is telling her the truth. And I think that if you was to come to, she's at that age where I feel that if you come to her as an adult with the truth, maybe some things you can kind of hide from her, but you can start telling her things now, not so much as a support, but to be like, this is what's going on. I'm going to take care of it, as opposed to completely blocking her out and just shunning her from what's really going on. Remember how she observed the drugs in the beauty store where she's like, well, I can't even get a job without y'all coming in and me being surrounded by your mess. She can't go home because her family is falling apart. The mistress, she's literally on the staircase as the mistress and the mom and the dad are fighting it out. So this poor child, I hope that she gets some kind of happiness and she sees a reflection of actual happiness, because this is a mess.
Well, we'll have to stay tuned for that to see if what's in store
she
for
might
her.
Flee. She might run away.
We'll see. So I think, did you have anything else you wanted to say on this topic before I move on to the next one?
No, but Mabel is a hoe and Lucille did everything right. And Charles is a hoe too. He just grimy. Patching, let me go over and build her a shed. And your walls are literally hanging off. Look, they fighting for their life just to survive. Look at this. Who the heck in the world lives like? But you want to run over to Mabel? The wall is fighting for his life. You see how it's even lopsided? The paper is barely holding on. No, he can go. Him and his tools can go. And the guitar too. Whatever's left of the guitar. I'm surprised she didn't stab him with
it. Well, hey, we'll see what happens. I agree. All right. So the next topic I wanted to get into, this is about Bryant and Jen in this episode. Obviously, Bryant, well, first and foremost, just a quick recap. We know that B-Mickie basically broke into Bryant's house last week because he was trying to get his hands on that weapon. And he was unsuccessful. Now, he did put his son Kevin in the closet, metaphorically speaking, obviously. We just, we don't know.
I didn't even think of it.
Yeah. We don't know about the character, what happens to the character in the future, but that's obviously what happened.
Trapped in the closet.
So now Bryant is basically telling his son, oh yeah, the bully Marcus must have did this. He's the one that broke into the house. But of course, Kevin doesn't believe him. So he decides to tell Jen this. And at that point, Bryant says, hey, well, if you don't feel safe, why don't I just send you back to your mom? And that's exactly what he does. So that's very interesting because he's trying to conceal this information. So later in the episode, Jen comes over to visit Bryant, and once again they get it on. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, for those that like this relationship, they get it on. Afterwards, later in the evening, she's snooping around his place and she finds the wristband that B-Mickie had when he went to the hospital to visit his mom. Okay. So eventually, the next day, they have a conversation about this, and he finally opens up and discusses what's been going on between him and B-Mickie. And she does tell him that this is strike 2. So obviously, I want to see what happens with strike 3. But they do get the good news after this that they found Boom's fingerprints at a drug scene. So they do bring him in for questioning, and we didn't get this particular scene. This happened off camera. And they showed him the photos of Terry and Markeisha getting it on just to get him to talk. And then that's when he says, yeah, the Flannerys are behind this. They have this connection with the Colombians, so on and so forth. So obviously, when Terry returns, he got a lot of issues to that he has going to have to worry about aside from what happened in this episode. But my question is, so what did you feel about how they handled this storyline with Bryant and Jen, and what do you think is next for both of those characters going into the season finale?
I have a lot of questions regarding Jen. First of all, my mind, when she kept saying, oh, strike 1 and strike 2, my mind automatically went to Deathstrike, because remember, she was Lady Deathstrike in the X-Men movie.
Oh,
I'm like, yay! So here's the interesting thing. When I interviewed Kelly who plays Jen, I asked her that scene that she did with Detective Bryant, the sex scene, was that a way of using or manipulating him in order to get more information out of him? Because let's be smart, he's not that smart. Love Detective Bryant, but the character seems like he can be easily manipulated, maybe by a woman. So I asked, was that a tactic used to get more information to make him trust her? I didn't really fully get a full answer behind that, but I still wonder if that was the case, because she, in the same way, used that exact same tactic to get into the house, to start snooping around, and that's how she found the wristband. I think that she was trying to actually find the safe, because remember, the boy brought up, oh, you changed the safe. So I thought that she was initially trying to find the safe, but she ended up finding that wristband instead. So I'm wondering if she's using these tactics of, we're both lonely, we're both two people, to really just find out more of his business. So kudos to her. Smart. Now, what's really interesting also, that seems to be an indicator that the finale is going to pop off, all the children are away. Zoe is still upstate, or wherever she's at with her peoples, and the fact that the boy Marcus was just sent away. To me, that's an indicator. So those kids are out of the way, so no harm is done to them in terms of if there's a huge shootout, maybe in the home. Because remember, we'll get to that later, everybody is now looking, we're going to go and take out Brian. We know where he lives. They've been in his house before. So that's kind of what I'm wondering. Now that we have go back to the end where they seem to have bonded on the fact that they were able to flip Boom and they're able to get the witnesses, I think that, when stuff starts to get a little too happy and we're being successful and it starts going our way, there's going to be some kind of downfall. I'm not just going to say, and I don't know whether or not this means Bryant is going to die. It could also mean Jen is going to die. Because if we are to kill Bryant in this scenario, who carries on? Would it be Jen, who is like, I'm going to go and avenge my partner's death? Or will it be more of Jen who dies, and Brian will now have lost two partners? And where does that leave him mentally? Will we see him in season 3 as in terms of, I'm going to go after you even more with vengeance, or I'm just sick of this whole thing, I'm going to retire? I don't know. And I know that's just the thing that seems to be really interesting. We know that they're not going to kill the Flannerys, and we both know that it's too early for them to start going to jail. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I want to provide an answer to that question. I think it's most likely that Jen gets killed because we already know in the future Bryant arrests Terry, so clearly nothing will happen to his character. But yeah, Jen, I can see something happening to her by the end of this season, because it's not necessary to. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen exactly, but I kind of feel like that character is on her way out. Whether she gets killed or she ends up leaving, something will happen to that character at some point when it gets to the 3 strikes. But I do believe it is going to get to strike 3, because that was a warning. That strike 1 and 2, those were warnings to Bryant that he needs to be honest. So it is going to get to strike 3, and at that point, then it will be over after that. So we'll see how that goes, though.
Well, yeah, that's another thing. We'll see. But right now, I just don't trust the happiness that they're both having. Things are coming too easy. Also, another thing that really bothered me, we're getting arrests that's completely off screen that I would have loved to have seen on screen. Boom was arrested. Remember, they found him with a fingerprint. We didn't boom with Boom. We didn't get to see Boom.
Well, he had the same fate as K9, where something major happens to the character off screen. Now, they did mention K9 in this episode, so we'll see if he shows up in the finale. But what we do know is that. Well, we'll see. But what we do know is that it's very likely that Boom shows up in that finale, and he has a confrontation with Terry. Because now Boom knows that Terry been messing around with his wife. So I can't wait to see that pop off for sure, because that's long overdue. And it's ridiculous they wait until the finale to finally get to that, because I wanted to see what was going to happen with that. But it makes sense. So we'll see.
Well, Markeisha has to die, because yay. Like, you just does it make any sense for her to live? First of all, she's not serious with Terry. She's using him. There are, the whole thing of even her being a predator, because she's so old, and not old as in terms of old, but he's still a teenager. What is he, 18, 19? You're still teen attached to that. And she is clearly up in her 20s, maybe touching 30. So make it make sense. She has to go. Boom, you already know. What's the point of Boom even keeping her at this point? You've seen how he doesn't really care about the kids.
Well, that's a good point. But we do know that nothing happens to her again, because in the future, it's alluded to that Terry is talking with her on the phone. So I'm pretty sure she'll be fine, but Boom definitely on his way out.
Why? See, this is why I don't like when they show things that's in the future, because let me just live in my head and my space that Markeisha's dead. Just let me be happy that way.
That is a tactic that hopefully they will learn with the next season. But I kind of feel like it's going to be the same situation, because it is when certain stuff that you see in the future. It is some intrigue to see how it gets there, but it kind of takes away what you was expecting in terms of where it could have gone. So we'll see what happens. But I agree, because we knew about that early. That kind of sucks. But we'll see.
I don't understand the purpose of Markeisha right now. They have other connects, and those connects are just as smart. But yeah, in terms of Boom, I mean, unless you start getting some prison scenes with them being shanked, well, no, they released him, right? Is he released? Or is he still in jail?
We didn't see him. It looks like he was still in questioning at the end of this episode. We didn't see him leave that room, so I would assume eventually they will release him. But they were still in questioning at that particular moment, and then they stepped out. So, but the next episode he is going to be out, because he's going to be mad at Markeisha. He's going to be looking for Terry. So you will see him in the next episode. I'm pretty sure of that.
Yeah, that is true. But yeah, overall, there's too much kind of happiness, and I do not believe he's going to turn a new leaf in terms of not lying. I think he's worked best alone, so he's going to continue to lie. And the fact that we have, she's threatening, that would also make her even more in danger, because remember, she's threatening almost to turn him in. So
that's true.
She can get it at all sides. She can get it all 3 ways. We don't know.
Yeah. We'll definitely see how it plays out. But yeah, there's definitely some intrigue still. So I'll be very curious to see how the storyline plays out. So we'll get some answers next week, though. I'm sure of that. So any other thoughts before we get to the next topic?
No, I think that they did a good thing. Poor Marcus. You know, that was sad. But yeah, it's good that he's gone. I think stuff is gonna happen now that he's gone.
You mean Kevin, right?
Kevin. Who the heck is Marcus then? Oh, yes, poor Kevin. She's like, I don't know. It's your notes. It's your memory.
Oh no, it's Kevin. It's Kevin. Marcus could be the name of his.
Marcus
superhero.
was the bully. No, Marcus was the bully. Remember, he
Marcus
thought that Marcus was the one who broke into the house. So
exactly.
Yeah,
that's it. That's what it was. All right, we clarified that. Okay, so now going to the fourth and final topic that I had to talk about, and this is obviously the biggest storyline of this particular episode. They are back in Atlanta during Freaknik, which is an event that I have definitely heard about when I was in college. I knew about this event as well.
He went to Freaknik.
Oh
Very
no,
much
I never.
So he went to that.
I never
summer.
went. I never went. That never happened. But pretty much, Meech and Terry go there, and of course, this is very interesting because Terry does tell Meech that this is an opportunity to get rid of B-Mickie. He says we need to leave B-Mickie there. He at first he says he wants to kill and take out B-Mickie, and then after Meech says no, BMF, we don't kill family. So what ends up happening is after that they agree, okay, maybe we will leave him there. They decide that. Now their whole reason for going to Freaknik is they're trying to lock down distributors and expand the business. Okay, so as you mentioned earlier, he does visit Goldie in this episode, and we're introduced to her sister who is dying from AIDS. So as you mentioned, I'm glad they put that in there because they need to show topics like this and address stuff like this to let you know how rampant that disease is and still is today. So I appreciate that. Now they did go to her because they wanted to try to use one of her clubs to clean their money, and she tells them, "Well, I actually have a better idea. Why don't you go to this meetup that they're having at Magic City? Because that's a business opportunity for them to pursue." Okay. Now, I do have a few critiques that I'm about to get into here, so stay tuned. They go to Magic City. All right. We're supposed to be meeting a realtor by the name of Stephanie. But before we get to that, obviously they meet some strippers, and then Meech has a very explicit sex scene with one of the strippers. Now, I'm obviously BMF, they're going to show you as much as they can, so I don't have an issue with that. But I do have an issue with the fact that we finally learned how he got his name, Big Meech. I did not want to see that. Now, listen, I know there are women and some men out there that wanted to see that. And listen, if you wanted to see that, I'm happy for you. Truly, I am. But I didn't need to see that. Obviously, we didn't see the whole thing, but I saw enough to say no. I don't want to see that. So that is a critique. That is one critique I had because I don't think it was necessary at all for the story. But it is what it is. It was a bit of a shock factor to get people, excited and stuff like that. Whatever. But okay, so now here's the thing. Okay, that was one criticism. So again, going back to let's stay on the business side. Okay, they do talk to Stephanie. She agrees to work with them, so we can see how that's going to go moving forward. Now, earlier in this episode, I had mentioned that Terry, he wants B-Mickie gone. So he talks to somebody like a hired guy to basically take him out. And in the purpose of doing this whole shootout, he ends up killing their boy, Ty Washington. Now, Ty Washington is very important because this is the guy they went to when they first wanted to set up shop in Atlanta. And you see he's living in like a penthouse. You meet his wife in this episode. So they had this scene towards the end where after they discover he has been shot and killed, Meech decides to go and console his wife. Let me just say right now, that was some horrible acting by that actress. Her reaction to her husband dying, it was not believable at all. Like like a little bit of tears. She needs to work on the acting. I have to say that. I'm just saying I was not convinced as a viewer. And then Meech's reaction to that, it's just like it's like, yeah, you feel sorry for what happened, but I think they could have done a little bit better with the acting in that particular scene. So that is a critique. And I know people probably gonna come after me in the comments. I have to say this stuff because listen. Well, I've seen a lot of movies where people react to somebody dying. That was horrible. All right, I just want to say that. Okay, so, but pretty much Meech says he's going to make it right. He's going to make it right. So we will see what happens. But at the very end of this episode, you see that Terry, he's on a rooftop talking with B-Mickie. B-Mickie knows that the hit was designed for him, and he pulls the gun on B-Mickie. He pulls the gun on Terry, basically planning to kill Terry. And then this is when Meech shows up and says, no, we're not doing this. And then, of course, again, Terry's telling him, hey, you need to kill him because, we don't play these types of games. And then, of course, Meech doesn't do it. Then B-Mickie and them, they all talk and say, hey, we know what the real problem is that we have to deal with, and that is Detective Bryant. So obviously, the next episode, they're going to go back and address a lot of these issues that they need to address. Now, the one thing I do find interesting, however, is there is still conflict with B-Mickie. And I kind of feel like, I know we have talked about with Power, you have this whole Super Friends team up. B-Mickie needs to be gone. After this next episode, something has to happen to that character because it doesn't make any sense. You don't have somebody pull a gun out on you and then all of a sudden, I'm going to let them live now because our bigger enemy is Bryant and I'm not going to worry about all this other stuff. So I'm not expecting B-Mickie to walk out of this next episode. That's just my opinion. Now, let's see what happens from a storytelling standpoint. But my main question was, what happens next? Where do you think things go from here? Do you think that Meech and Terry can trust B-Mickie? And what are the main things they have to deal with in the finale? So I'm going to give you that question first, Dana.
First of all, please direct all of the hate comments towards Richard because I did not attack Young Miami and her acting. So, boo this man. Tomatoes, tomatoes, tomatoes. Boo him. First of all, the fact that so I loved how your reaction to that scene of how he got Big Meech, got his name Big Meech. That scene was interesting, but also you see the difference between Detroit strippers and Atlanta strippers, most particularly Magic City. So kudos to them because that's art.
I just want to say I did see the difference. However, I do also want to say this because I went to Magic City recently, and T.I. and Tiny were there. They should not have been in there, but what they showed in this episode in terms of the strippers, that was a lot better than what I saw when I went to Magic City recently. So that they need to work on that a little bit more, I think. But continue.
Oh. Yes, so that's a very interesting dynamic. Also, it was incredibly sad. Bad acting aside, because that was bad acting. Bad acting aside, yes, it was about the connect, but then it shows how violence that wasn't even directed at you still touches other people's lives by killing Ty Washington. You know what was so sad? It wasn't the fact that he had a wife, but you saw all those little babies, all those children, and then they did the monologue about this chain is fake, but it's my son, and he thinks it's real, so I'm gonna wear it. It was like, yeah, you're definitely dying. It was too happy go lucky type of, and they're admiring him and look what you got, what you accomplished. You got your family with you, and so I wonder now with his death, we have that basically, I forgot her name. But Deanna is her name in the show. Um, she was like, you bad acting though, but I want payback. You get them back. So she's looking for retribution, and I feel that Terry and Meech, even though as much as they hate B-Mickie right now, and as much as Meech is saying don't kill him and maybe there's a side of him that does want him dead, um, the three of them need each other in this moment. And it wasn't like B-Mickie was pulling out a gun just to pull it out. He was pulling out it for a reason. He realized that they set him up to die. That is a very justifiable let me pull a gun out on you moment. This wasn't some random cross. They knew that he was in a bad situation with Brian. They still said okay, but then you tried to lure him into Atlanta to get him all shot up and killed. And then by your own hand, your own way of not thinking, you ended up getting your own connect kill. So the blood is on Meech and Terry's hand. And that shot of them standing together with guns ablazing, ready to go at each other. First of all, I just love that shot. That shot was beautiful. I love how it was centered. But it really was interesting how you have that, and then you have the quote at both the beginning and the end, basically saying your family is being torn apart. That way the enemies are able to come in. And you look and you see how Bryant has tore these three apart. If you took Detective Bryant out of the equation, I think all three of them would be like the Musketeers. But because of what Bryant has done, it's caused such distraction in the core group of their family. So while it may not have made sense to some people, to me, it was okay that B-Mickie didn't die. Whether or not he dies in the future, yeah?
Oh, no, continue. I'll go after you.
Whether or not he dies in the future, we don't know. But at this moment, they need each other. You even look at how it's broken down. B-Mickie he's the one he's the intellect. He thinks before he reacts. Granted, when he was in that house, he wasn't thinking, but he thinks overall. He's very analytical. Then you have more of Terry as the quick hothead one. So if you need that muscle, you got him. But then you also have Meech, who brings in his own different side of thinking about things. He's also a thinker as well. So all three of them balance them off for this big showdown that we're probably going to get in the finale. It works.
Yeah, I agree. I just want to make a comment and say, yeah, I don't have a problem with the story. I actually thought it was very smart to approach it this way because, again, it's this whole thing where they're taking B-Mickie on a retreat. They're trying to get him out of there because of all the stuff that happened with Brian in the last episode. So he's going on this retreat thinking, oh, yeah, this is a new place, new opportunity. But really, Terry is the one that says, hey, we need to get rid of him. So I thought they handled that very well. What I'm saying, though, is that I am expecting some type of conclusion to this storyline next week, whatever that is, because after they deal with Bryant, and obviously Bryant is going to survive because we know in the future he survives. After they go after him, though, and they try to get revenge, and again, there's a list of people they have to go after. Obviously, you got him, you got Lamar, and you also have Boom, who's going to be coming for Terry. So when they go back and deal with all of these situations, the real question at that point is going to be, where does B-Mickie stand after this? Because clearly, I don't think they can go back to just being the same as it was. So that's what I'm curious to see next week, for sure. So
would tuned. You be upset if he is alive, but he decides to walk away?
I wouldn't, actually, because number one, I like the actor. I mean, I like the character he plays, but I just need to see where they're going with this whole thing here, because you don't pull a gun on, yes, as you said, it made sense for him to pull that gun because he saw the hit coming that was failed, but you don't pull a gun, threaten to kill somebody, and then all of a sudden that person is going to just completely forget that we would just had our guns drawn on each other. I kind of feel like that somebody is going to, because you can't trust him. And with Terry, one thing we know about Terry that this show has told us, he is very hot-headed because even when they met with the Colombians, how many times Meech had to tell him, don't bring weapons, right? So Terry is still, I feel like he's still going to do whatever he wants to do, regardless of what Meech says. That's why I feel like B-Mickie will get killed at some point. If he walks away, that's great, but it just doesn't end well for him. That's what I do know. So I'm curious to see how they tell that story at the end of the season.
But at the same time, what show do we both watch where they pulled out guns on each other, literally shot each other, and still be super friends?
You're talking about Power.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, where they took shots and then they missed each other. Somehow they shoot every other enemy perfectly, but when it comes to each other, they can't shoot them. You're talking about Ghost and Tommy. They can't shoot each other because
they came on.
Yeah. So we'll see. Yeah, you make a good point, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Like I said, I don't have a problem with him walking away. I mean, I feel like he's been through a lot this season and last season. You lose Kato, you lose your mom in this season. So you kind of want to see the character have some type of happy ending, and then he was in the middle of all this stuff with Bryant. But I don't know what the path is that they're going to take with this. Obviously, Meech always had his back up until the end of this episode where he's like, hey, you got your gun on my brother. I'm not going to let that happen. And then everything switched. So I'm curious to see what they do. But I look forward to it. Like I said, they did a very good job how they handled the storyline. So they got me intrigued to see what happens in the finale next week for sure.
I wonder, how he had that big monologue at the end about how he couldn't kill him because he was family. And, family doesn't basically, they stand together. I wonder if that monologue is going to kind of come back at him, or is it foreshadowing something that's going to happen in the finale regarding family? I wonder.
That's very possible. Again, what we do know is that regardless of what happens, Meech and Terry will be fine because they told us that these people, they're still around. Obviously, we know they're still around. So that none of this stuff will happen with those characters. But I feel like anyone outside of those two characters and Bryant, they can go at any point in time because they're not in the future. Obviously, the cop that Leslie Jones plays is in the future, but all these other characters, they don't exist in the future based on how they played out with this particular storyline on the TV show. So anybody can go, but those characters. So I'm curious to see how they get to that point for sure.
Mm-hmm. Then also you have to question about the guy who got kicked out of the group. Family.
Oh yeah, yep. That's a good one because I was waiting to see if that character get some revenge. And shout out to somebody that left a comment because there was a comment left on the previous discussion where they say, "Oh, we know Terry would probably get whooped if they had a rematch because Meech was there. But if Terry's by himself, does he have a chance?" I want to see that fight happen. So let's see if it happens. So we'll see. But that was all the questions that I had for this particular discussion. Was anything else that you wanted to bring up before we get ready to wrap up?
I already touched upon the sister. I love the fact that we have Goldie as, just three-dimensional character where she's more than just, face of an operation. How she's teaching the strippers of Atlanta, the women, to think with your head, and that she is actually setting up plans for them to advance both in her business, but also just advance in education. Remember, the Atlanta real estate agent was a former stripper that was employed by Goldie. So I really like that, giving back to the community in the right way. Freaknik was really interesting. I had to Google Freaknik. Good Lord, that's an experience. I wonder why you were so happy to participate in it, Richard. So yeah, that was really nice. Also, Lamar is the one that scares me the most because he's the most unhinged. So it's really hard to predict what he's going to do in the future. But I look forward to. He is one of those main people that I constantly look forward to what is going to happen with him. And also now the fact that Mo is dead. How does as you said before, how does that impact other characters? You talked about Denise. So it's just a lot with her being dead, and then also how does that affect the entire investigation? And we know that it doesn't really impact him because now we had the pact of we have to go out and we have to kill Lamar and Bryant. Because clearly he has to step up because Mo, it didn't work that way. I should genuinely feel sorry for what Alvin is going through. I hope he makes it through this season. I really don't know at this point. Um, Also, what's really interesting, Charles, what's going on with Charles? That whole situation, it could have just easily, it's like a one night, more than one night. But what's interesting about Charles and how they really did it, I really feel that in terms of what Mabel did to Charles, she treated Charles as an object. Remember how when they was talking with Christine, remember when she says, "Oh, I'm sending you back to your wife." That was from the previous episode. "I'm done with you. You can go back now." And then even how she talked to Lucille when she had her smushed up on that wall. Yeah, I felt bad, so I gave him back. I ended things as if she wanted a trophy for that. So that was really interesting in how it was worded. So I kind of feel that in a way Charles was objectified. They just used him and then abused him and then tossed him aside. So that was really interesting, and that kind of goes to reiterate whether or not Charles overall has a backbone. He can be manly sometimes, we saw in the church, but does he genuinely have that backbone? Even his daughter is bossing him around. "Just leave, Daddy. You done caused enough of aggravation and pain." So I wonder, does Charles get his backbone back? That would be really interesting. And also kind of with Ty Washington, that was just really sad overall. Um, so you got that, and also with Canine. Well, Canine again, will he show up? And also, who's going to be the witness that remember they're waiting for people to flip. So who's going to be that person that flips? Will it be the guy who they let go of in this episode?
That's possible.
He could be one of the ones who flips. So there you go. I think that they do things for a reason, and there's a callback to certain things for a reason. So remember, he was the top earner too. So now he's not making money. He's angry. He's going to be very upset. What do you do when you're that way? You're going to flip. So,
yep.
Boom.
Very good point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. But
yes, we
excellent
will.
points. No, excellent points across the board. I think that concludes our discussion for this week. So once again, if you did enjoy this conversation, definitely leave your comments. Definitely consider subscribing so that you don't miss the finale discussion we have next week. And also consider liking the video. But yeah, did you have any particular shout outs that you would like to give, Dana?
Yeah, just shout out to everyone who's been listening to us. Subscribe to the channel. We'll be back with more discussions. We have Power is Powering Up very soon. We're excited about that. Things go down, and we have other shows that are also coming out as well. I have a bunch of, it's actually 12 interviews today, so that will be posted throughout the week. And John Wick 4 dropped. We got Scream 6 that I'll talk about that later on. That dropped, and Shazam 2. So just stay tuned for more reviews and discussions and what other else videos we have.
Yes. Sounds good. Looking forward to all of that. Yeah, like I said, like Dana mentioned, we do have Power coming back. Gary and I will be recording the next Snowfall recap. Snowfall actually is airing right now. So stay tuned for that on the main channel, the Koalition main channel. And yeah, once again, thank you all for your continued support. Hope that you have a great week and weekend ahead. And we will talk to you all next week.